Runion, and I am going to compare and contrast learning theories of Skinner and Bandura. B.F. Skinner was a behavioralist, and his theory of operant conditioning believed that classical conditioning was too simple to completely explain complex behavior. He proposed that reflexive behavior only accounts for a small portion of all action. He was concerned with observable external behaviors. He believed that the best way to understand a behavior is to look at the causes of the action and the consequences. Through operant conditioning, an individual makes an association between a particular behavior and a consequence. To conduct his experiments, he used the Skinner box. His work focused on placing subjects in a controlled situation and observing the changes in their behavior produced by systematic changes of the consequences of the behavior. An example is the rat pushed the lever and sometimes he would get a food pellet. Sometimes he had to push the lever to stop electric shock. That is an example. Okay. Reinforcement helps increase the behavior while punishment decreases the behavior. He believed that people could be controlled with reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcers increase, punishers decrease. There's two categories for reinforcers, primary and secondary. Primary satisfy basic human needs, they're biological. Secondary reinforcers acquire value by being associated with a primary reinforcer or other secondary reinforcers. Positive and negative reinforcement. Positive adds something to increase a response. Negative takes something away in order to increase a response. Intrinsic reinforcers are personally rewarding. The reinforcer maintains the behavior because the activity is enjoyable. Extrinsic reinforcers motivated by someone else to perform the behavior or engage in the activity to earn a reward or a punishment. In extrinsic, they wouldn't enjoy doing the activity unless they were being made to or to stay out of trouble. The schedule for reinforcement, fixed ratio, that is reinforcement of a behavior after a specific number of responses. Variable ratio, that's reinforcement after a specific period of time has elapsed. Fixed interval, reinforcement of a behavior after an unpredictable number of responses. Variable interval is reinforcing the behavior after an unpredictable amount of time has passed. Punishment is when undesirable behavior produces unpleasant consequences. Punishment has two primary forms. Presentation punishment is the use of unpleasant consequences or aversive stimuli. An example, scolding. Removal punishment is the withdrawal of a pleasant consequence. For example, loss of time, time out, loss of recess, no computer time. Positive and negative punishment. Positive punishment occurs when it punishes the undesirable behavior by adding something unpleasant. Negative punishment removes something pleasant. Extinction is the gradual weakening of a conditioned response that it results in the behavior decreasing and then eventually disappearing altogether. Extinction happens when the behavior is no longer reinforced or the reinforcement is no longer satisfying. Shaping is teaching new behaviors by reinforcing along the way toward the goal of a new desired behavior. That is reinforcing along the way toward the new behavior. Albert Bandura, his theory is the social learning theory. And he believed that he agreed with the behaviorist theories, classical and operant conditioning, but he added two important ideas. Mediating processes, which occurs between the stimuli and the response, and behavior is learned through observational learning. Bandura thought that Skinner's theory on consequences of behavior largely ignored modeling, and modeling is the imitation of others' behavior. Social learning theory explains human behavior in terms of continuous reciprocal interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences. Social learning theory is described as the bridge between traditional behavioral theories and cognitive approaches. In social learning theory, there is also vicarious learning, and that is learning from seeing others reinforced or punished for engaging in certain behaviors. There is also self-regulated learning, and Bandura hypothesized that people observe their own behavior, judge it against their own standards, and reinforce or punish themselves for their behavior. Mediation. Unlike Skinner, Bandura believes that humans are active informational processors and think about the relationship between behavior and the consequences. Observational learning could not happen unless there were cognitive factors at work. The mental factors that intervene in the learning process to determine if a new response is acquired. Individuals don't automatically imitate, that there is some thought process and between the stimulus and the response, and that thought process is considered mediational processes. Social learning theory is considered a bridge between behavioral theories and cognitive theories because social learning theory is concerned with the mental process between the stimulus and the environment. So that's how the two are linked and why it is considered the bridge between the two. Bandura conducted a famous experiment in 1961 called the Bobo doll experiment. And that was an experiment that he used to demonstrate the way that children learn aggression. In the experiment, children were exposed to aggressive, violent behavior toward an inflatable doll. The violent behavior of the adult models toward the doll led the children to think that it was okay to imitate the behavior. The experiment supports social learning theory that people learn through observation and interaction with other people. There are 4 phases to observational learning. Paying attention to the model is attentional. Retention is storing it into your memory. Reproduction is the copycatting. And motivational is where believing that imitating will increase your chances of being reinforced, being rewarded. Similarities between the two: both learned from the environment, both conducted controlled environment experiments, both utilize reinforcement and punishment, both can be applied to humans and animals. The difference between the two: operant conditioning learns from environmental experience. Social learning theory, there is environmental, observational, and mediational. Social learning theory, there's modeling and vicarious experiences involved, whereas Skinner's is more of a personal experience. Skinner's was concerned with cause and effect. Bandura was more of an active informational process. Skinner conducted experiments on humans and animals. Bandura's experiments involved humans, even though his theory can be applied to animals too. Skinner was concerned with observable behaviors. Bandura was concerned with the internal processes. Operant conditioning is a behavioral theory. Bandura's social learning theory is a bridge linking behavioral and cognitive theories. To sum all that up, B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning is a behaviors theory. Bandura's social learning theory is the bridge between behavior and cognitive theories. Operant conditioning was concerned with relationship between behavior and consequences, external behavior. Social learning theory is concerned with behavior and consequences as well as observational and cognitive processes, internal. And here are my references. Thank you for watching.